Make Money Work, New American Dreams is a production of Twin Cities PBS. Funding has been provided by Wells Fargo Foundation, working together with families, neighborhoods, and the community to achieve great things.
At the historic First Bank building in downtown St. Paul, vaults and security systems are remarkable relics of an era when cash was key to America's economy.
Well, in those times, of course, there was millions of dollars of cash literally flowed through these doors and down these corridors and in various safes inside of the vault. So today, of course, with the development of ATMs and all of the credit, it's a much more digital and plastic currency.
Despite all of the opportunities and innovation of modern banking, many immigrants prefer cash, like their counterparts a century ago.
That's something that I learned from all my participants. I asked them, well, how did you finance yourself? How did you manage your finances back home? Well, my bank was just under my mattress.
Being so new here in the country, my parents, they would just keep the cash somewhere in the house.
Most of the immigrants come from countries where there aren't as sophisticated financial systems as here.
People still like to work with cash. But the thing is that if they're working with cash, they're not really leaving that financial footprint.
But home country traditions aren't the only reason many new Americans are among the unbanked. Culture, language, and trust issues also get in the way of financial stability. What can banks do to be more culturally agile? How can immigrant communities learn across generations to build wealth? How does education, understanding, and empathy help new Americans realize the American dream and make money work? Immigrant and refugee communities are succeeding in entrepreneurship, education, and politics in remarkable ways.
Warsami may be sitting next to the council's first Hmong member and its first Latina member.
Just as waves of immigrants from Northern Europe did a century ago, people from the developing world are reviving business districts and neighborhoods as they strive to give their children a better future. However, parents face the long-standing obstacles of coming to America.
ตรวจสอบเราลูกเตเชนามาอยู่เนี่ยอยู่เตเชเจยิ่งลูกเตเชยิ่งจ่ายหาตรวจสอบเจก็ยังจิเป้าอีหลานลูกก็จิเป้าอาชีเจกันเทียนนั่นเทียเขาละยังจิเป้าอาชีในช่วยยาแต่ต่อจะนั่งหาเราเองตรวจสอบกันเทียนนั่นเทียเขาซื้อ
Cuando yo llegué aquí a Minnesota fue hace 10 años, fue cuando encontré el gran problema, la gran barrera del que no me entendían.
Navigating financial systems is one of the most daunting differences.
If I do not understand how to make it work, do you think I'm gonna like big or small institution if it doesn't help me? Probably not.
Banking and credit and taxes, these are topics that even your typical American population has a hard time understanding. Needless to say, the differences of the financial system back home compared to the United States could be very, very eye-opening.
You know, in the olden days, back in laws, wealth is seen through how decorated in coins your sons or daughters are as they participate in Hmong New Year or other events in the community. They also have like these silver bars. So you know that you need to accumulate X number of those silver bars because when your son gets married, then other people will say, well, I need 7 of those silver bars, right? So I think wealth is seen through that way. Culturally, we come from a background where when you have wealth, you bury your wealth. You bury your wealth somewhere that, key members of the family would know. I've had relatives who just recently went back to Laos and are able to kind of trying to find where they had buried it, right? So I think coming from that culture of not putting your money into a banking institution, and speaking about my parents' generation at that time, it took them a long time to build the trust and to start putting their money in the bank. Now, my parents are, they're doing online banking and, they're really sophisticated now. But that was not the case before. I think it's very typical of new refugees and immigrants, is the fear.
ตัวรู้ได้เจอนะมันเทศีเนี่ยจะมั่วตัวชาเนี่ยมั่วเขาเจอนั่งจังก็จะเนี่ยเจหาไปรู้ได้เจอมาที่ถอไปย่อมาไปรู้ได้เจอนึกจิมั่วจะตัวชาเนี่ยนะที่นึกจิมั่วจะรงนะไปจิตต่อมั่วจอลีนะไปมามูเจียรัวชีตาตามมูเทก็เต้นนงกีเรามูโตตัวนาวีเขาแต่ไปรู้ได้เจอจิตต่อมั่วจะไปจิตเทจิปอจอจะเกนะ
I haven't really seen it, but hearing my dad talk about it, seems like my dad been through it, and that's why they have some issues with trusting banks and stuff like that too. It kind of affects the way we choose to.
The common issue or the common story is always how they did not understand what is happening at the bank. They got rushed into signing one thing or the other. They were made to sign contracts that they did not understand what those contracts are. And a lot of people actually end up thinking the banks did them injustice, whereas it was part of the agreement that they signed that they had no clue what they were signing for.
Basically, a lot of institutions would prey upon those Latino communities because they didn't have the correct information. Something such as simple and apparent as sending money back home. Wiring services, they're gonna charge them, $10 just to wire $100 back home. Whereas if they were to file, open up a simple bank account, they're able to cut those fees in a third or in half.
But many in communities of color and immigrant communities say that predatory lending doesn't always come from outside the community.
Sometimes I think even if they're like us, we might not be able to trust them too because they know more than we do. So they could easily lie to us.
For an example, if my mother randomly met somebody, the person who's trying to sell her this product or promote this thing would always just speak the language and just be really, really good at convincing you and said, oh, sign up for this card. Every time you use it, you get $30. She'll end up giving them her name, social security number. Whereas me, if I heard it and I would just call that person right away. I'm like, I hope you know you're selling things that are absolutely incorrect, really.
Choua Vang has extensive experience in financial services. She is an emerging American professional who is connected to traditional Hmong culture. People like her, children of immigrants, make up a transitional generation who not only guide their parents and then their children, but they can also inform and inspire banking professionals, as well as the rest of mainstream America. Whether brought here or born here, children of immigrants become central to their family's success.
I'm what you guys could consider a dreamer, meaning that I was born in Mexico and I was brought here very young. I was fortunate enough to retain my Spanish, and I was fortunate enough to learn English and learn it for the most part fluently, enough so I can navigate the systems. I understood the struggles of my parents, trying to live paycheck to paycheck, and fortunate enough to see how banks work and to kind of learn about the financial system. I really thought of myself as a bridge.
So you can see your withdrawal, and then it tells you what your balance is right here. I've done it for many, many years prior to my dad passing away. It's just now I kind of manage a little bit more with my dad not being here.
Ever since I was real young, I had to translate for my parents and filling out the free school lunches for school. I mean, I had to know that, and I had to know about my parents' financial situation.
We do the best to translate it, through the person we're talking to. But yeah, eventually it's up to them whether they agree to it or whether they check it or sign it.
Aquí solo me dice que fue un éxito, que sí me aceptaron todo. If bills come in, I try and translate to her as much as I can. So I try my best.
Yo me refugiaba en mi hija cuando íbamos a alguna tienda o íbamos al banco y yo le decía, tú estás en la escuela, tú tienes que saber más que yo. Poco a poco mi hija me fue ayudando en ese aspecto, aunque son cosas que ella en la escuela no le enseñan. Entre las dos decía, mi hija, pero es que se dice esto, tú explícales que yo quiero hacer esto. Y ella, en ese aspecto, ella me ayudó mucho. Ella les decía, ella quiere hacer un depósito, ella quiere hacer esto.
There are some who caution about placing this burden too squarely on the shoulders of children.
I mean, I feel like a lot of the kids have to be involved and be aware of parents' financial situation. And at that early of an age, I mean, that's a lot of responsibility. And I speak on that from a personal experience. I think one of the things is making it in place so that the children don't have to. But oftentimes, because those resources aren't there, that there is no other choice but to make the children, translate.
Nos juntó más porque yo estoy más agradecida con ella. Sí, no afectó la relación con mi hija.
It's not our job to do it, but we feel good when we do it, when we help our parents.
We have to help them. It's something, I don't know, I feel like we're their daughters. It's kind of like our responsibility to look out after them because they've been looking out after us too.
Some pillars of the financial system can be hard to grasp for young and old alike, including credit scores.
No, that's something we haven't really learned, but I'm getting around to it.
Not only are you coming here to a country that you didn't even trust the banking system, now you have to learn a whole different concept of credit. There are a lot of misconceptions. If you use a credit card, you got to use all of it and then pay it off all at once. No, that's not how it works at all. Credit companies don't want to see that. They don't want to see you max out your credit card. That's just additional risk.
Coming from a community where buying in credit was not an option, or at least buying credit in the way we understood in the Western culture is not an option, and all of a sudden accessibility of it is quite confusing to many people. Like, how could you be able to possibly go and purchase something with money that you don't have and be able to pay it later?
I talk about their FICO score from being from 300 to 850. I always tell them, you have a higher credit score, you have more options.
Financial institutions list credit history among the 4 C's of credit, along with capacity, collateral, and condition.
Credit history is a demonstration of repayment of credit you've received. Capacity is your capacity to repay back the loan. The collateral is what's used to secure the loan, which would be a home or a car, could be other things. And the condition would be market conditions.
The 4 C's of credit. So when you're thinking of buying, here at NIDA, we assess these 4 things.
Understanding these 4 C's is a cornerstone of home ownership courses, like this one at Neighborhood Development Alliance, or NIDA.
You're ready to talk to the lender, or wait a minute, we have to work on one of these areas first, and then we can refer you over to the lender.
One of the first things that I learned with NIDA was if you don't have a credit, you don't exist in this country. So they helped me to start building my credit from zero. So take for me 3 years to get that.
They associated credit with wealthy people back home. They could barely make ends meet back home, that they would never see themselves applying for a credit card.
Traditions from back home are now among the solutions to building and repairing credit, including lending circles.
As far as a lending circle works, it's a social loan system that many cultures offer. If there's 10 participants and they all want to save $100 a month, all right, we initiate a lending circle. Each month they'll pay $100 towards a pool of money. So, that's $1,000 in the pool of money. Those $1,000 will come towards one of those 10 participants in a particular order. We use that concept and we apply it to mainstream America. It's the same idea. The only difference is that there is security, there is establishment, and the best thing is that it's a way to establish credit.
Lending circles are among the culturally centered services offered to help with financial literacy and stability at organizations like CLUS.
CLUS is Comunidades Latinas Unidas en Servicio, is the largest Latino nonprofit here based out of Minnesota, from areas of educational enrichment, economic stability, cultural engagement, and family well-being services. Ultimately, we help them set themselves up towards the American dream. Seek that assistance because there is assistance out there. It might not be in monetary assistance, but the assistance as far as resources and as far as the education, it does exist, but we all need to. Sometimes we just need to go out and look for it.
I was involved in the economic advancement division. I come from all these problems that the people are facing. You know, there'd be young mothers in front of me, and all I could think of is this could have been my mom, at some point in time. And so I think that drove me to really put my heart and soul into all the work that I was doing there. You can learn about it, you can go to school, you can study it, but it's not the same. When you go to sleep hungry, that changes who you are, that changes the way you think. I think I have that advantage where I've been through it. I was blessed with a strong heart and a caring personality where that motivates me every day to serve the people that I do.
African Development Center wanted to get the immigrants and refugees who are already in this country to build wealth, to become successful, to take advantage of resources that are here.
In addition to ministry, leadership, and banking experience, Emma Kasiga also passes along basic financial literacy tips.
Save, save, and save. Well, saving is definitely huge on my list. Many of us have heard it over and over is expect the unexpected. But there's nothing that is unexpected. If it's death, if it's sickness, if it's unemployment, everything, that if you're going through life, there's always one of those challenges in life. So plan for that. And also, I would say there's no instant gratification without huge penalties or ramifications. So many times you see people tell their children to take their piggy banks to the bank so they can cash in and they can go shop online. I just find that a little bit disturbing because what are we teaching our kids? We cannot plant oranges and expect apples. So we have to plant apples to expect apples.
Mall American Partnership started about 20 years ago, and when we first started with the organization, it was mainly to serve the Hmong community. We have very, very diverse clientele now. And so within the last 10 years, we have really transitioned from an ethnic-specific organization to a community-based organization.
I kind of want to get to know everyone and see where they're at in the home buying process.
When I come the first time here, I don't have an account. I don't know what it's gonna mean, credit or all those kind of things. Those things are new for me.
Rodrigo Cala originally sought out NIDA to help him with his taxes. Over the course of years, their guidance helped him achieve home and business ownership.
Finally, in 2008, I get my farm. I buy a 46 acres farm on Trolley, Wisconsin. The best way to make better our community is to empower our community. So the only way to do that is help and teach the Latino people how they can be more powerful about on their own business.
Culturally specific services help newcomers deal with financial systems in other settings, like college campuses.
I want to become a registered nurse. That's been my dream since I was little.
And this is fall semester right now.
Well, Jessica, she's really nice. She's been so helpful.
Absolutamente.
If I have any questions, I would go to her and she would try her best to help me.
I've been through the process myself. I was the first one in my family to go to college here. College is an investment. It's a big decision. I find that families are supportive and they're behind the students saying, yeah, you can do it.
These advocates see how new Americans encounter clashes of culture in Western commerce. Gender roles are among the cultural nuances that affect financial literacy and management.
This mom came into my office. She had told me that her husband had just been deported, and now you have a mom who doesn't know how to pay bills, doesn't know how to manage money, because in that culture, at times the male is the breadwinner, and I've seen it when the bankers would have a conversation. It seems like they would only focus on the male, and I think that including both a male and female would be important. Two heads are better than one.
The Hmong culture, the daughters would be married off and carry somebody else's last name.
We would have to go to our husband's house instead. And so then the one who's gonna really have to look out for them are like my brothers.
So with that, all the assets, all the money, all the capital, everything goes to the sons.
But with younger generation, our American-born children, are very different in terms of gender role and financial management.
Now we're transitioning into a more Western mindset.
While many of these cultures mesh well with the American ethics of hard work and entrepreneurship, they are less focused on the Western trait of rugged individualism, often sharing resources within family and community.
We depend on each other a lot.
In East Africa, we call it harambe. Like, you gather together and you collect. You put a bucket and everybody drops in whatever they have or contribute. And this happens especially during funerals or times of need.
For like my grandma's insurance, they have other families participating in like part of it as well, because she's a grandma to not just our family, but her other kids as well.
Financial professionals who sit across from these customers might not be familiar with these kinds of cultural norms and nuances. Herman Milligan, a pioneer in connecting American banking with new American communities, encourages an empathy and openness.
Are you basically giving the best service that you can to the person who is in front of you? You have to have a whole series of filters around being sensitive to the culture this person may be from. What do they really need? So there's a whole series of tools you need to figure out, okay, what really are the best products for the person who is sitting in front of me?
We like to do business with people that care about us, with people that understand us. And that's the real element, because business is about relationship.
This cultural agility needs to be programmed into technology as well.
Because the ATM is now, along with the cell phone, is probably the main point of contact for a lot of people. So the in-language capability is really, critical.
The industry, as they notice that it's been a barrier, and they're trying to move forward with trying to bridge that gap.
Yo fa mun ta te ka cha tua cha nye la to ho na cha nang ne na tua cha nye la tua cha nye che la ho na ya te tu tha chu tua cha nye che la na ta yo chu hai to cha tu la na man wo ke yan yang lo to shi ne chu hai to ne cha chu chu lum beng te nya to ho na ya lu ne nam beng thua to ho tu te cha American na ya lun dau chap le fan gong beng ten le ma tha ka ne chu hai to cha nang ne te nangดูหนังเดินหนังอีเสียอาชีพก็ซาก็เลยว่าเกณฑ์ยันยังอีอย่างก็ทำมัวอีตูใช้ตัวอีตู
In my career, where I was in more sales type roles, and one of my managers said, "You are speaking very softly. You are sounding very and confident. You don't have confidence with what you're doing." I said, "No, you're forgetting. I'm an African woman. If I'm speaking with confidence, I'm lowering my voice and I'm speaking slower so that I make sure that you know that I'm speaking with authority. You're telling me I should not be who I am. I should be who you want me to be."
One thing that I suggest bankers to do and financial institutions is to try to make these services a little bit simpler to understand. Make that small print a little bit bigger.
Y para Camila, la que estás empezando otra vez de nuevo con tus hijos, ¿tú qué quieres para ella en el futuro?
Bueno, ahorita ya hay más ayuda en los bancos, ya hay más gente que habla español que cuando yo llegué, pero pues mi meta es aprender el inglés para que no batalle como batallé cuando estabas tú chiquita. Y yo creo que ella, pues, si yo aprendo más el idioma, ella no va a batallar.
Putting myself through college, paying for my own education, working all day, all night, being a single father. It was really rewarding to be able to come home to something they call your own. I am a homeowner, yes.
I'm very proud of who I am, of who my parents are, of who my family is. When they first purchased their first home, that was part of the reason why I was able to go to college, because I at least had a home. It was a home that was ours.
I think financial literacy is the most important gift that we can give as far as new immigrants especially, and opening doors to American dream.
Pues yo me siento feliz porque a pesar de que cuando llegamos hace 10 años tú tenías 8, hacías el mayor esfuerzo por expresarte lo que yo no podía decir. Y me siento orgullosa porque, pues si no nos hubiera entendido a ninguna de las dos. Y gracias, hija.
Make Money Work, New American Dreams is a production of Twin Cities PBS. Funding has been provided by Wells Fargo Foundation, working together with families, neighborhoods, and the community to achieve great things.